Good morning, Monty. It is, Thursday, and I totally forgot I had to make a video today, so I'm going to do that now. And I'm going to do that thing where I watch your video and then immediately make a video after it on the same exact thing you made a video on, but in a slightly different way. You're talking about emotional connections to things, and I started thinking of all the things that I have emotional connections to that are really ridiculously odd, and they don't make sense to anyone else, but I associate this particular season of Doctor Who with my mom because I'm pretty sure we've watched this particular season more than any other season just because this is the season that plays most often here, and I don't know why. It's also one of my favorite seasons, and also the season that makes me cry the most out of, like, any season, except, yeah. These are two other things that I associate with my mom. Before I show them to you, yes, I own both of these, and I don't know why I still own these. But I still associate these with my mom, because I used to make her watch them with me all the time, and then she did because she loves me, which is awesome. And there's probably more stuff in my room that I associate with my mom. Actually, most of everything in my room I associate with my mom because she bought most of everything in my room for me. Which is pretty fantastic. This is another thing I associate with my mom. Oh, hey, look at how much I've read this book. I associate this with her because she made me read it when I was in kindergarten. Kindergarten or first grade, because my brother bought the movie home. And I wanted to watch it, and she wouldn't let me watch it until I read it, because my mom was in on the read it first thing, before the read it first thing was even a thing. And so, I'm pretty sure that book is what really sparked my love of reading, and especially my attachment with the Harry Potter series, because I grew up with it, and I've made videos on this topic a lot, but the Harry Potter series has sort of been incredibly influential to my life and very important. This book I associate entirely with not an emotion, but a place. I associate it with Chicago because I read this in 4 days in the car trip to Chicago, I read it on the car trip to Chicago, and then the 3 days after that, while I was in Chicago, I honestly spent my entire trip there reading that and eating McDonald's and playing Mad Libs. Yeah. This book I do have a lot of emotional attachment to, and it was partially because it was the ending of the series. And even though the movies were still going on, I was never really that attached to the movies, but the books were important, and this one especially because right after I finished reading it, I had to move from Massachusetts, which is where I've lived for my entire life, to Orlando. So that was a huge change in my life, which is part of why this is so emotionally, important. Yeah. Let's see. Speak by Laurie Holt Anderson, besides being an amazing book that you should read, was sort of, don't know why, but this was sort of the book that started me, purposely trying to annoy my aunt and uncle when I lived with them. So it's always had this sort of, to me, this, feeling of needing to, speak up and just every time I read this, some sort of change has happened. The last time I read it, a few days later, I sent Joe an email asking him, with the Love Person collaboration thing. Yeah. My emotional attachment to this changes a lot. Literally, every time I read it, there's, more emotions into it. The first time I read it, I remember, just generally being confused about everything. And I read it, didn't really help my confusion, but it made me a bit more content. And then when my friend Raven died in a car accident, it sort of helped with that. And then, I don't know, now it's the point where, like, whenever anything is going on in my life that's a bit weird or a bit, like, terrifying, if I read this, I will, like, calm down immediately because it's so, like, comfortable and familiar, and it's just something that, I don't know. I don't really know why I love this so much, but I do, and it's the first book of mine that I've, like, enjoyed enough to want to highlight it, so, yeah. Very important. I did a bad job explaining this book. I associate this with Christmas. It's Christmas, and it was my first Christmas here, and it's also slightly associated with you because I talk to you about it a lot, and it's also the comic that made me get into comics, which is nice, and there's, like, color and stuff, and I like it. This is the book that made me realize I had an anxiety problem, so that's pretty important. The Hunger Games is something else I associate with you because of what you mentioned yesterday about the first conversation being about the Hunger Games. These two albums I associate entirely with Louisville, Kentucky. This one primarily with my bedroom in my grandparents' house, and this one primarily with the bus that I took to school every day at like 6 in the morning, because all I would do on the bus, it was sit, or like mostly lay down in the seat with my hood up and listening to that album. And it's to the point now where if I listen to it, I like literally start visualizing my trip. And yeah, so you see through most of this, I don't really associate things with feelings, but I do associate them very strongly with places and memories, and that's sort of why I like treat most of my books and albums the way that I do, in that I'm incredibly protective over them, and I'll generally only let people borrow them if I trust them a lot. And like I just let Chrissy borrow Paper Towns, which is like insane, but you know, that's all for today. I'm going to stop this because this is really long, and I didn't want this to be long, and I'm sorry, so I'm going to leave now, and I will see you on Tuesday.